Senior 3, welcome to this other session of English language by teacher Ali. Thank you for watching me. Today we are going to look at transitive and intransitive verbs. Transitive and intransitive verbs, as you can see on the blackboard. Now, first of all, I'd like us to know what the word verb is before we go to those types of verbs. A verb is an action word. A verb is an action word. In your primary schools, they used to call them the doing words. You see, the doing words. But here, we shall use the word action word. Why? Because a verb is always used to illustrate an action. You see, to show an event that is happening or that happened, depending on the tense that you want to use. For instance, I can give you some examples of a verb or of verbs. We can say playing, no? Or play. You can say cut. You can say put. You can have kill. You can have die. You see? Why? That when you use this in a sentence, they will actually show an action. They are illustrating an action. For instance, someone can say that he went to play football. He went to play football. Yeah? So that playing is an action. He cut the dog. He cut the dog. You can use put. See, he put his clothes on. Kill, he killed an elephant. Die, it died. So those action words. So before going to transitive and intransitive, I wanted us to look at the word verb and know what it means. Please, maybe I've forgotten to tell you, but I'd like you to get books and note these things down. You see, I may not actually write all the things I'm talking about, but if you are responsible enough, I know you have to get a book and write or note these things down. Okay, now after looking at what a verb is, we have transitive and intransitive verbs on the blackboard. Now, what are these kind of verbs? One, a transitive verb. A transitive verb is a verb that does not require an object to make full sense of a sentence or a complete statement. And a transitive verb is one that requires a direct object to make full sense of a sentence or a complete statement. I know it is a little hard now, but when I illustrate this, you will actually understand. Please follow me on this example. I have an example here. If someone said, example 1, if someone said that Firdaus ate, and then they stopped here. I sing this, Firdaus ate. You see, the listener or the person who is being addressed, they will actually either verbally ask themselves or the speakers within, their inner selves, like, okay, yes, but what did Firdaus eat? See, there will be that how word. Now, that means that this statement here looks to be incomplete, or it does not actually carry full sense, or it is having that incomplete kind of meaning. That means that there's something that has to be put here to have complete sense of this statement. Okay. Now, so someone has to specify what Firdaus ate. So if the speaker came here and said, okay, Firdaus ate food. So are you seeing this example here now? Number 2. Please don't forget to put those full stops. Firdaus ate food. Are you seeing that? Now it takes us back to our SVO structures, the one that we looked at when we had the passives. Now, so we have this subject here. I think now we know the meaning of subject when you're talking about SVO. See, a subject is the doer of the action. You see, and I remember telling you this. And then we have our verb, which is ate. The verb is the action word that is used in the sentence. Then we have the object. I think this. Now, this is a transitive verb because if it doesn't have this object, however much, even if it has the subject and the verb, the statement will be incomplete. It will carry no sense, or it will have half of its sense. So it will require someone, the speaker or the writer, to put an object after the verb to complement this action here. Okay, now we can have some other examples. See, if we have example 3, then someone says, the teacher laughed. You see, I want you to look at this very well. When you look at 1 and 2, and 1 and 3, you can see that they are actually almost the same structures. Not actually, they're almost, they are the same structures. Because what we have here is the subject plus the verb. Are you seeing that? The subject and the verb. Now, when someone says the teacher laughed, or the teacher laughs, this is a complete statement or a complete simple sentence. Yet it only has the subject and the verb. Yet in our first example, we had a statement that had the subject and the verb, and it was incomplete. Why? Because in the first example, our verb that we had, which is eat or ate, was or is a transitive verb, which requires a direct object to make its full meaning or complete meaning. Now, in our third example, the verb we have, which is laugh, see, it is an intransitive verb. An intransitive verb. This kind of verb is the opposite of the other. This verb here does not require a direct object to make the sentence complete. You see? The teacher laughed. The teacher laughed. So now, right now I know you know the difference between a transitive verb and an intransitive verb. Let's have more examples of these. Please just remind you that we are looking at transitive and intransitive verbs. Transitive verbs, they are the ones that require the writer or the speaker they require a direct object for the verb, and the intransitive verbs they don't actually require a direct object to make full or complete meaning of the sentence. Now you can have things like the hunter killed. See, so here we have our subject being the hunter because he's the doer of the action, plus our verb. Now when someone just says the hunter killed, do you think do you think this statement carries complete meaning? Definitely it is no. Why? Because kill is also a transitive verb, so it will require a direct object just after it to make the statement complete and meaningful. So you'll need, if you are the speaker, you are required to specify, because this is a hanging statement. It is a hanging statement. Someone asks you, what did the hunter kill? What did the hunter kill? Now, the hunter killed something. The hunter must have killed something. So what is that something? Tell us. So you come here and please. The hunter killed lion. I think that yes. Once you don't put an object after these verbs, after these transitive verbs, they will stay hanging and they will be questionable. They will need something after it for them to make full sentence. If you just used another example here of okay. See, if you just use an example of the cow died. What is here? We only have two parts still in this sentence. We have the subject, which is the cow, and then we have the verb, which is die. So, but you cannot ask yourself, what did the cow die? That would be a very wrong question. So that means that this statement or this simple sentence is complete without even an object. So that means that this is also an example of an intransitive verb. So now there's something here that we would like us to complete with, and then we shall have more of these examples, and I'll give you some exercise about this session here, about this topic. see, in our previous session, we looked at the passives. And in the passives, there is somewhere where we learned that for someone to have the passive right, they have to change or to switch the positions of the object and the subject. You see, you have to switch the positions of the subject and the object to have the answer right, or to have a sentence changed into a passive one. Now, for instance, if we had, let us use our old example. Let us use our old example that the hunter killed a lion. The hunter killed a lion. So, remember very well, we talked about the subject, and then of course the verb, which actually it retains its position, is the subject, and then the object, which is the sufferer. Just to jog your mind or to take you back, remember we talked about subject as the doer of the action, and then the verb as the action itself, and then lion, and then the object as the sufferer, or the one who is affected by the action. See? Now, so we said yesterday, or in our previous session, that for you to get a statement like this or a sentence like this and turn it into a passive voice sentence, see, you have to switch the positions of the object and the subject. See, let us try this one out. So we are changing that. A lion was killed by the hunter. A lion was killed by the hunter. In fact, here you can even change this and use the why, because now we only use this article for something that is not specified. But now the lion we're talking about is the one that was killed. So, but this is also fine. Now, leave that one aside. Now, let us focus on this. We are seeing that our object has switched or has taken the position of the subject. Now, there's a new subject, and then our old subject is at the end. See, sitting in the position of our old object, and we say that this is how we can create a passive voice. We looked at that. Now, what if we had things like this? God forbid, I'm not saying that you're going to die, but I'm only using this as an example for our understanding. The student died. The student died. I saying that, and then they ask you because die is an intransitive verb. It won't require you to say what did he die. You see? Yeah, of course someone may actually ask, what did he die of? But that is now an indirect complement or indirect object. But now we're talking about the direct objects. Just like you can see that after the verb, straight away to, and if you're talking about eating, straight away, Firdaus ate food. There's no preposition between the verb and the object, or there's no other word between the verb and that's what that is why we actually calling it a direct object. Now, because here you can say the student died of something, you know, maybe corona, God forbid, please. But now we are talking about this. This is a complete statement. The student, someone has actually communicated. The student died. Now, how can you change this into a passive voice? You see? Yeah? Are you trying out to change this into a passive voice? Please don't waste your time, because it is impossible. It is impossible for someone to use an intransitive verb use an intransitive verb in a passive voice. You see? So it is only the transitive words that are used in passive voices. See? So that's what I wanted to tell you. Now, before I actually give you my task or the exercise that you actually have to do in your books, I just want to repeat this a little, that we've been talking about intransitive and transitive verbs, and we began by defining the word verb, which we actually laid down as it is a verb. I mean, it is a word. It is an action word. It is a word that illustrates an action or an event. So, and we gave examples. Now, then we went down and say that we have what we call a transitive and intransitive verbs. Now, a transitive verb is the one that requires an object or a direct object in order for it to make complete sense in the statement or in a sentence. And we gave examples here. In those, we gave examples in these sentences, and then we looked at an intransitive verb, where we said that this one here, it doesn't actually need a direct object to make complete meaning or sense of the sentence or the statement given. We also saw that, and then lastly we talked about the passives and how they are connected with these verbs here. We say that it is only the passive verbs, it is only the transitive verbs that can be used in passive voices, and the intransitive verbs cannot be used to form the passives or the passive voices. Now, we can have here, I can give you a few examples of transitive verbs and intransitive verbs, and then you will help me later on in your books. This will be like your task or exercise, and you give me. I'm going to give you that. Let us first have, if you like, 3 on the other on one side and 3 on the other side. So we can say that transitive, for examples of transitive verbs. See, one here, we are going to say play, and then you give write a sentence talking about this or applying this verb. You say see, but when you just come and say he played, someone asks you, what did he play? Because there's so many things that you can actually play. Then let us use this one here, just like in our sentence. Boy killed a snake. So that the boy killed a snake. And then third, we shall have this one here. Mother ate rice. See? So those are the examples that we can give, but there are so many others. Others. And then I'm going to actually give you that exercise and tell you how to find these verbs, and then you thank me later. Now, examples of intransitive verbs. So one, we can use the word die, say, the cow died, and then two, you can have laugh, you can say my mother laughed. See? I don't know the still okay. And I put it here, so you see the sentence. The third example, we shall use the word rain. See? That is, you can say it rained, and this is completely meaningful. It rained. Now, there is a statement where someone can say it rained cats and dogs. You know, it rained cats and dogs. That is another form, and that is not what we're looking, because that is an idiomatic form or clause. But here we're looking at these ordinary SVO sentences and how we use the transitive and intransitive verbs. Now, those are the examples that I could actually give. There are so many, but of course, time. I'm going to give you a task. I'm going to leave you with a task. Oh, maybe something that I'd actually forgotten. But in the dictionary, these verbs are labeled. You know, they tell you that this is a transitive verb, and they also show that this is an intransitive verb. How? They use these labels. Verb T, that means verb transitive. You see? Verb actually this stands for transitive, this T here. Transitive. And then the other one is the I. You know, they are always in small letters, those labels. In small letters and in italics. in most cases, but you will see them. The most important thing is you to know these labels here. Here it will be verb, intransitive, transitive. So how do they label them? You'll actually go and say maybe the word love. See? It will be somewhere here. See? And maybe if we have another verb that is maybe play, there will be that VT. See? Now this actually brings us to the task that I want to give you. Now you're just going to help me go to your dictionary and write for me 10 of these verbs. 10 of these verbs. I would like you to write 5 transitive verbs and 5 intransitive verbs. And then after doing that, please try to write sentences using those verbs. Try to write sentences using those verbs that you'll have written down in your books. And then another source that I'm going to give you, you go to Google and type in differences between transitive and intransitive verbs, or examples of transitive and transitive verbs, and then also write 5 of those. I want these ones to be different from the first task. So you have to, one, you use a dictionary, you see, and the second one you use Google, and those, so that means you'll have 5 plus 5, that will be 20, 20. And then you having 20 sentences in your books regarding transitive and intransitive words. It is something worth. Now, just the last part of this, I just want to remind you that we cannot use intransitive verbs when you are creating or forming or writing passive sentences. You see, we had an example here. So what does that mean? That we have to note this very, that we are only possible to create these sentences using transitive verbs. Please remember that I've given you a task. Go to your dictionary. If you don't have one, you can borrow from a neighbor or your friend. But I know you have one. Senior 3 student, you know you have one. Use that dictionary. Get at least 5 words. 5 words that belong, or 5 verbs that belong to transitive, and then 5 intransitive verbs, and write sentences using those verbs. Then after that, proceed to Google and ask, or write down, ask Google to tell you the differences between transitive and intransitive words, and then also ask him to give you the examples of transitive and intransitive words. Why am I sending you those sources? See, because they'll actually give you this information and another elaborated information. So please, just be cooperative and you'll find out more information about these verbs. See, just within these 5 minutes that we are remaining with, we've been looking at in transitive and intransitive verbs, and we began by defining what the verb is, and we say that a verb is simply an action word. See, why do we call it an action word? Because it is a word that illustrates an action, you know, or an event or a happening. You know, right now I am teaching, so teach is a verb because it is illustrating or describing the action. See, so and then we proceed. We went to these types of verbs where we had transitive and intransitive verb. So we say that a transitive verb is the one that requires a direct object in order to make complete meaning of the sentence or a given statement. And you had those examples of kill, of laugh, and all that stuff. You see? And then we say that an intransitive verb is the one that does not actually call for or require or request or need a direct object to have the sentence or statement complete. See? So those, and then we also say that these are when you are writing passives, those passives are only possible formed by transitive verbs, and once we have a statement that has intransitive verbs, then the passives will be very hard for you to make. Now I would like us to stop here, and you may actually have something. Now when I send you the dictionary and to Google, I know they'll give you more elaborated notes and things. You can summarize them down, don't worry. You can write them down in your books, and then they will help you later on when in your revision. So please, I would like to actually stop here and call it a success or a successful session. Okay, see you. Thank you for learning.